Hey everybody, thanks for joining us here at Traces of Hollywood. Today we're going to explore some buildings around Palm Springs designed by the famous architect Albert Frey. We're also going to visit his grave at a local cemetery, so stick around for that. Albert Frey was born in Switzerland in 1903 and later worked in the Beaux-Arts style, then moved to Belgium where he learned about the Bauhaus and modernism trends. Then in 1928 he came to America to work. We're going to focus on his projects in Palm Springs, so let's start with this structure that you see right when you enter the city from the 10 freeway. That's the freeway you'd take if you were coming from Los Angeles, for example. It's the Palm Springs Visitor Information Center, formerly known as the Tramway Gas Station, because it was an Inco branded service station for many years. Frey always tried to respect the natural surroundings where his buildings were placed, while mastering the juxtaposition, I guess you would call it, of modern design, something we know today as desert modernism. In a letter to a friend, Frey once wrote, "The sun, the pure air, and the simple forms of the desert create perfect conditions for architecture." Here's a historical plaque on the side of the building. It reads, "Tramway Gas Station, built in 1965, designed by Albert Frey and Robson Chambers, conceived by developer Culver Nichols as an entry statement to Palm Springs. The roof is a hyperbolic paraboloid of steel I-beams and corrugated metal roofing supported by steel tubular pillars. Albert Frey was consulted in its 1998 to 99 adaptive reuse as a sculpture gallery." So let's go ahead and walk around the building here for a little bit. I love the shape of this. It reminds me of something you would see in a Star Wars movie. It also has a little bit of a Frank Lloyd Wright vibe to me as far as the textural aspect of the stones. Here we are facing towards the point of the overhang, looking towards Palm Canyon, which is the main road into Palm Springs from the 10. And let's just look at this. Let's take this in. It's such an amazing and cool design. I know some of you are into movies like I am, and you probably recognize this from Don't Worry, Darling. This is the sign for the Palm Springs Aerial Tramway because this is the street you would take to go to the lower station if you wanted to take the tram up into the mountains. So let's have another look here, facing the entrance, and let's go ahead and pop inside. So here you'll see something that plays a role in other Frey designs, this corrugated metal ceiling. I think it's really cool. We'll see it in the Coker Sampson building we're going to visit later. If you walk through here, you'll see this mural for the city of Palm Springs. That's right back toward the restrooms. Greetings from Palm Springs, California. I'm sure lots of people have taken photos here for their Instagram. Here we go. We're on the back side of the building. Less visible. You have to actually step around between the restrooms and the main building to see this. And if you walk a little further, you'll see the parking structure in this open lot. I don't know if there are any plans for this. Probably not because of its historical designation. But it's cool to see everything. And again, here's that repeating corrugated ceiling structure. Here's a really cool side view, and I love it because it reminds me of a Star Destroyer from Star Wars. And yes, I know I've got Star Wars on the mind today for whatever reason, but here's a view from across the street, and we can see the tramway sign here, and that's the road you take back to the parking lot to get to the lower station where you board the gondolas and then ride those up to the top of Mount San Jacinto. So let's go ahead and turn left onto Palm Canyon here, and we'll go downtown and visit our next destination. I really love these palm trees. I never get tired of seeing them in Southern California. I grew up in a place that didn't have anything like this. It is another hot day, as you can see, 111, but that's pretty normal for Palm Springs in the summer. So if we turn off of Palm Canyon onto Alameda, we'll see on the right side here what used to be an apartment complex. It says permanently closed if you look on Google Maps, and that's just because it's no longer apartments, but it is still fully functioning. People live here. So here we are. We're at the Villa Hermosa. There's a little bird that came to greet all of us, so enjoy him doing a little dance. I like to feature whatever wildlife shows up in my videos, of course. So as we walk back here to get a better look, I'll tell you a little bit about this place. Villa Hermosa is no longer an apartment building. It is, they're condos. So you can buy these units and live in them full time, or as a second home, as a lot of people do here in Palm Springs. They have sold in the low 400,000s to the low 500,000s, according to the property management website. And reading from the website, I'll tell you what they've got to say about it. Villa Hermosa, located in the very sought-after Old Las Palmas neighborhood in central Palm Springs, was designed by architect Albert Frey in 1947 as a residential hotel. The property was beautifully restored in 2003. The 21 units surrounding a sparkling blue swimming pool and a spa and offer fabulous panoramic mountain and desert views. The community is managed by the Monarch Management Company, so look them up if you are interested. It does say the HOAs are $478, including insurance, pool and spa maintenance, grounds and water. There are no rental rules at Villa Hermosa. So that means that you can list these on Airbnb if you like. Here we can see the Progress Pride flag at this church. And as many of you know, Palm Springs is very open and welcoming. And it's said that as many as 30 to 50% of residents here identify as members of the LGBT community. Now, for whatever reason, the sign is on the opposite side of the main entrance, which is here on Hermosa Place, which makes sense that this is the entrance because this is called Villa Hermosa. So we'll just stand here and take a few moments to have a look, let you guys really absorb the architecture, take it in. Very angular, very modern. Walking back on Hermosa Place towards the parking structure. If you look down there, you'll see the church, and that's where we were just a little bit ago. Pretty cool. I wouldn't mind having a unit here myself, actually. Now, I am going to take a moment and say that in my videos, I don't really go through and give the full biography of the people I'm talking about. I feel like for the most part, people who watch these videos, they're watching them because they already know about these people as far as those kind of details. And if they don't, it's because they don't care. And of course, I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that a lot of people like to just come along with me. Like you're visiting me on my travels, on my journeys. You're a friend in town. I'm showing you around the neighborhoods and where the old celebrities lived, filming locations, grave sites, of course. But here's something that's pretty cool. Just down the street a bit, also on Hermosa Place, is the home of a very famous person. This is Leonardo DiCaprio's house. I'm sure he has several others. I know he lives in Los Angeles and probably other places, but this is the old Dinah Shore estate that he bought a few years back, and this is his home in Palm Springs. Now, I have been here when he's been visiting, and I've seen the garage door open and his vehicles, but I'm not going to disclose what those are. And if you do come visit, keep in mind these are, people's homes, so stay on the sidewalks, don't trespass on the lawns or onto the property, and just respect them like you would want someone to respect your home. And just past this beautiful Spanish bell tower, we have the Coker Sampson building, which was built in 1934. It was designed by Frey with A. Lawrence Coker for Coker's brother, who is a retiring physician. And I'll put up some photos of what it looked like in 1934. And as you can see, it's pretty spectacular. Standing on its own really makes a statement. And as you can imagine, this looked like nothing else that was being built in the mid-1930s. So when these photographs were shown in 1935 at New York's Museum of Modern Art for an exhibition about California architecture, it really caused a stir. Coker's brother used it for his real estate development and insurance business, and on the second floor it also has a studio apartment with some outdoor patio spaces that served as his residence, so he lived above the businesses that he ran below. Now, I've been fortunate enough to be inside this building, so I have some photos that I'll put up here, but first here's a few more of the original images. And now we'll look at some photos coming up the spiral staircase, which leads to a little patio out the back. Here's that same staircase from the era, from the back side. Here's the patio that you access from the stairs. Now this is when you first walk in, and you can see that corrugated ceiling material again. So in 2012, the city of Palm Springs designated this building as a Class 1 historic site, and during the meeting, one of the members actually said, "The Coker Sampson is probably the most important building in the city that we drive by every day and don't notice." I do know that this building is available as a filming location, and it's also a short-term rental, so you can stay here if you like. So we'll get some last looks here, and then we will head on over to our next destination, which is near the Palm Springs Art Museum, and it's called the Illuminaire House. And nope, that is not the Illuminaire House, although it looks like it could be. So the Illuminaire House was built in 1931, so even earlier than the last place we saw, but I would say arguably even more advanced in its design. And it was also designed by Frey with A. Lawrence Coker. So these are the hours that you can actually enter this gate and have a look at the house up close. And even though it was a Monday when I stopped by, it was locked, so it's not always accurate. Here's a little sign with some information. Proclaimed a home of the future when it was first unveiled in 1931, the Illuminaire House is considered an icon of modern architecture, the first metal house in the United States. Palm Springs Art Museum acquired it for its permanent collection in 2020 and reconstructed it on this site in 2024. I mean, you've got to admit it is a really spectacular design, especially set against the natural backdrop of the hills here. And I'm going to do a little walk around because I think it's really spectacular the way the metal on the outside reflects and kind of undulates in the light, kind of like a lenticular, if you know what those are, those old plastic 1960s images, like postcards a lot of times, and as you moved it back and forth, they would change shape. We can see inside here a little bit. I don't think it's fully finished out inside. I think a Studebaker Avanti would be the perfect car to have outside this garage. Here you can see it's almost got like a pinstriping effect. I wish I could get up close today. I've been right up to it before. It's really interesting. I don't know, I guess I shouldn't be, but I'm surprised they had the ability to make that kind of texture in metal in 1931. I mean, it's really precise and almost sharp when you touch it with your bare hand in person. And also, it gets really hot. I've been on here on a day when it wasn't nearly 111 degrees, and it was ridiculously hot to the touch. So maybe that's why they didn't catch on. I have no idea, but I would live in this. Would you guys live in this house? If they still built these, would you guys live in this? Leave me a little message in the comments. I'd be really curious to hear what you think. And this is looking back towards the Palm Springs Art Museum, just to give you an idea of where it's located. Over there is the Forever Maryland statue of Marilyn Monroe. Here's on the other side from where we were. We were in a parking lot adjacent to the museum, and now we're on the other side, which I think is actually a little bit more impressive with this large window array and the really beautiful balcony that it has. And again, look at the texture of the building. I think it's just so spectacular. And I'm admittedly not the biggest fan of modernist architecture, but this might be my favorite, not only in the city, but might be my favorite anywhere. I think it's just spectacular. And as I was driving to the next location, I passed this scene, which was some bighorn sheep that we have a lot of in the area, but are seldom seen. I only noticed them because there was a gentleman in a car in front of me who pulled off the street pretty quickly and pointed it out. And the pretty spectacular animals. And by the way, if you've seen my other video about Suzanne Somers' homes and her gravesite, her house would actually be right on the other side of the hill there. These are some young ones, and you can see the one on the right started budding the shrub, so I took that as my hint to leave. So we're actually backtracking here a little bit because I wanted to save this for last. And this is between the Illuminaire house and the Coker Sampson, essentially on the west side of Palm Canyon. It's on West Chino Drive. You can also take Alejo, which will turn into Vine as a little cross street right here. And this is the cemetery where Albert Frey is buried. This is the Wellwood Murray Cemetery, and for some reason I'm having bad luck with gates. The gates were not open for this today either. And I'll go ahead and read this one for you as well. The Wellwood Murray Cemetery was the first community cemetery for white settlers in the Palm Springs area when Wellwood Erskine Murray, the son of pioneer hotel operator Wellwood Murray, died in 1894. He was buried on a small parcel of land. During the next decade, the Murrays allowed other burials, and Wellwood Murray himself was interred in the cemetery in 1914. Following his death, this site became a part of the newly formed Palm Springs Cemetery District. So the other cemetery that's part of the district is actually Desert Memorial Park in Cathedral City, and that's where I filmed the video about Suzanne Somers' gravesite and her home tours. So check that one out if you haven't seen it yet. And here we arrive at the final resting place of Albert Frey. And in my mind, this is a very fitting grave marker. Very simple, very clean, like his designs. Modernism is about purity of line. Nothing extraneous, nothing you don't need. And what beautiful surroundings, though. What a really lovely place for him to be interred. Looking back are the mountains. Just a lovely, lovely place. He was 95 when he died of natural causes at his Palm Springs home, by the way, so a full life. So I'm going to end it here because I don't want this video to go too long, but there are more buildings that he designed around Palm Springs, and I can cover those in a future video. So if this is interesting to you guys, go ahead and leave a comment and let me know if you want to see that future video. And my channel is not monetized. I do this out of my own pocket. So if you want to help the channel grow, please subscribe. That's the #1 thing I can ask that will really help and is really meaningful. So thanks, guys. See you next time.